And he's loose again. Edwards off the running. Puts it back down to Edwards. They hand it off to Johnson. Boise State has won. Right now, and they take a downfield shot. And the catch is made. It's Ryan Williams. Goes to the free. Touchdown. Going for the corner. He's got it.
All right, everybody, welcome into another edition of the Gridiron Uncensored podcast. We've got a special show tonight. As obviously, we're talking about Ohio State, the defending national champions, even though that pains me to say it a little bit as a Michigan fan, but still, exciting show tonight. We've got Mike Wachsman coming over from College Football Focus. It means a lot having you on, Mike. Thanks for joining us. If you can, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me. You guys do a really nice job on your pod. I listen to it during the day when you guys have some new ones. You and about 3 others are in my queue, so you guys do a really nice job. As far as myself, grew up in Columbus. Both parents went to Ohio State. I went to Ohio State. Was a journalism major. Did not finish because I got a job covering Ohio State for a weekly newspaper. And I probably did that for close to 30 years. So I got to see them. I got to see them beat Miami and win the national title. I was pretty much done with it by the time they won under Urban Meyer in 2014. But I've been following them, obviously, since I was probably about 7 years old. Archie Griffin was playing. He was the running back in the first game I ever attended. So that was always fun. And that kind of started my love of Ohio State. And then probably high school, I started getting into more teams, more than just OSU, because I said, well, you know what? If I ever want to cover this, I need to know more than just my local team.
Yeah.
So I then got a 9-to-5 job because we were starting a family and I was gone too often, being on the road. So I did that. And then when I stopped doing that about 3 years ago, I said, you know what? Let's circle back around and let's get back to college football. So I've been doing this here on Twitter and on the internet for about 3 years, and hopefully this season will be one of my best over. I've watched my followers grow, and I'm happy about that. I'm trying to produce some content myself on YouTube, getting a little more regular with my podcast as well. Just had one up today actually with Phil Steele, which I really liked because he's obviously one of the big names in the industry. So I was happy about that. But I'm always happy to talk college football, and especially Ohio State and the Big Ten.
Absolutely. Hey, love the background. It's so cool, having somebody on that one has so much experience, but also is a love of the team, that we're talking about too. And the Phil Steele, I mean, obviously he's awesome. And you just also released a preview as well. So.
Yeah, we did. That was done about right around the early part of July. And we do, I mean, a preview is a preview. I mean, we've got predictions, we've got analysis. Where we go a little bit deeper is our team previews for the power conferences. It's not just names and positions. Lindy's and Athlon, they're great. They have their own little niche. They do their thing. They don't write up a whole lot about the teams, though. We have about 3 pages worth of content on each team, and we try to go a little bit deeper, I guess, talking about formations and schemes and maybe some younger guys that may step up that don't always get mentioned by some of the other magazines just because they don't really have the space for the previews. And we actually go 50 deep on our impact freshmen and impact transfers, whereas most things go like 10 or 20. Yeah. So we have full conference rundowns of all of the G5 leagues with predictions and all conference teams. So it's pretty comprehensive, and it can be purchased at cfbfocus.gumroad.com. That is also on my Twitter page if people are looking for it. So if they didn't get that address first, when I give out my socials at the end of the show, they can go over to my account and they can find it there.
Sounds good. Hey, well, we again appreciate you being on, Trev. When we do these guys, for anybody that's new or coming in to watch, we start off. We kind of do a kickback to 2024. Obviously, a great season for Ohio State, and then we move on.
Doesn't get much better. Doesn't get much better.
It's hard to top winning the Natty, right? So, unless you can do it back to back. So we're going to look 2024 and then move into 25. Obviously, the loss early to Oregon, there was some crazy stuff that going on with that game and clock management and everything else, whatever. You guys got your revenge later on, and then still winning out throughout until, the Michigan game, still kind of that overhanging issue. But in the end, it didn't matter. They still won the national championship, tearing through the playoffs, taking down Tennessee at home. Was a nasty game. Oregon, another blowout, and then a great win against Texas, and then a really clutch win at the end of that game against Notre Dame. 2024 can build us into 25. Guys, thoughts on the 24 season, just real quick, and then we'll, what can they build on?
Yeah, I think that really the Michigan loss, while no one in Columbus liked it, I actually think it was a blessing in disguise, because if they beat Michigan, I'm not sure they're as galvanized as they were going into the Tennessee game. I mean, you heard for days after the Michigan game, sports radio and just people in town were saying, man, they got to win this game. They got to beat Tennessee or days out. They said, how could a team with so much firepower only score 10 points? All this stuff. And so I think if they win that game, they may have beaten Tennessee, but I'm not sure they would have had the hard edge that they needed to make the run that they made. And just really blowing out two pretty impressive offensive teams in Tennessee and Oregon, and then kind of doing it a little more workmanlike and physical fashion against Texas and Notre Dame. It showed that they could kind of play both ways, that when some of their offense was tamped down just a little bit, they could still win games because they could lean on their defense. Obviously, the Texas game was cinched when Jack Sawyer made his big play. Yep. And against Notre Dame, the defense most of the night until about maybe midway through the third quarter, when Notre Dame hit a couple of passes to get back into it, the defense kind of was pretty good in that one after Notre Dame's first drive. So it helped to be versatile, but I really think that after the Oregon game, the first one, they just tweaked the defense a little bit. I know that there had been a little bit of, I guess, discontent between Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson. Ryan Day said, look, you guys got to fix this however you do it. And the defense did look a little bit different and looked a little bit better. But I really think it came down to losing to Michigan, galvanized them, and just brought them together, and they went on the run that they did.
Yeah, I 100% completely agree. The Michigan loss definitely got their heads, for lack of a better term, out of their butts. Because honestly, other than the Oregon game, in my opinion, they really weren't pressured at all that season. Obviously, the Oregon game kind of caught them off guard, I guess you could say. But Oregon squeaked one out, but I mean, just looking at the scores and the totals for the games over the course of the season, outside of the Oregon-Michigan game, they kind of dominated that whole season for the most part, outside of those two games. So that Michigan loss definitely propelled them, I think, to the national title, like Mike was saying.
Yeah, even a couple of the tight ones that kind of got hairy just a little bit, like the Penn State one, that it's still they woke up and they're like, okay, we're back to normal. We're back to Ohio State football. And then I agree, it definitely, taking a loss like that will wake a team up. So moving in, 2025 and what this team can build off of it, even though some of the numbers, 48% returning production, we know you lose a ton of seniors. I mean, that's kind of a blueprint right now that we're seeing in the league. Michigan did it. Ohio State obviously did it with retaining players from leaving with NIL. Penn State's and Clemson's trying to do it this year. So they have 48% return production this year. They lost a ton, but they're still rated as number one in the SP plus. And then they have the 21st strength of schedule, according to Bill Connolly as well. Numbers from last year, it doesn't matter as much just because of so much has moved on, but 30th offense and the first rated defense. Can they maintain or at least be in that same realm? And it all starts with coaching. Knowles moves on. Patricia's in. Brian Hartline's the offensive coordinator. Mike, what do you think of this coaching staff? Because I know there's a lot of question marks out there. Trevor, we've talked about it a little bit. There's that feeling of like, is this going to fit? Is this going to work?
Yeah, it's interesting. they had two guys in Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly who were both really experienced. Knowles had been there before. Kelly came in for just for the 1 year. Obviously, he coached Ryan Day in college, and I don't think he would have done it for anybody else. And folks were saying that he was washed up, that Knowles maybe wasn't all that he was cracked up to be, but all Ohio State did was have the best defense in America.
Yeah.
And when it got down to it in the playoffs, Kelly was in his bag and just had guys heads on a swivel, and especially Tennessee and Oregon had no idea how to defend them.
Yeah.
And Kelly was calling really, really good stuff. And so he has now moved back into the NFL. And Brian Hartline, I think, is interesting in that he's been lauded certainly as a great recruiter. I mean, obviously, the receivers he brings in on a year by year basis, it just never stops. And so he's one of the best recruiters in college football. Now he's getting offensive coordinator. He's had the title before, but he never really did it. It was still Ryan Day calling the plays. But we have assurances that Hartline is going to be the one calling the plays. So the fact he's never done it, I think, is a little bit just gives you a little bit of pause for concern. I mean, he's been in the program. It's not going to be a radical change. He knows He knows Ryan Day's players. He knows the talent. It's not like he's going to have to learn everything. But you wonder, okay, as a receivers coach, is he going to lean a little bit more on the pass? Chip Kelly liked the physical run game. And is Hartline going to rely more on the pass? Or is he going to try to keep the balance with the ground game, seeing how vital it was to Ohio State winning last season? As far as Matt Patricia, I know that was kind of questioned just because of some of the, I guess, off the field stuff. And he had a disastrous tenure as head coach.
Yeah.
But the NFL is different from college. And when he was coordinator for the Patriots during their Super Bowl runs, the Patriots had like a top 5 or 6 defense in the league. And all he's really going to do, he's different from Knowles in that he's not going to be as aggressive with his blitzes. Knowles loves to bring the blitzes from different areas. And Patricia wants to be able to have guys who are versatile, who can play specific roles. And he's not going to necessarily say, okay, I definitely want my linebackers to lead the team in tackles, or I definitely want my safeties to be up here. There's going to be a little more versatility. I don't think they're going to be flying around as much as maybe they did with Knowles, where it's okay, the quarterback's looking, where's the blitz coming from? Maybe they fake and drop back. I think Patricia's going to be a little more basic with his schemes, but I think that it's going to be technique, and the talent is going to win out. And that's what he's going to want. When he was with the Patriots, they were always good at forcing turnovers and at getting sacks. So if they can do that with the potential that Ohio State's offense has, they'll be just fine.
Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, as far as Hartline's concerned, I'm not too worried about him, to be perfectly honest. I know it's his ship to run as far as the offensive side of the ball is concerned, but in my opinion, he is going to by the end of the season be probably considered and win the best assistant coach award. I think he will actually be in the running and most likely win it, because in my opinion, he is the best, one of the best position coaches that we've seen in a long time, as far as the amount of receivers that he can claim that he has in the NFL right now is absolutely mind-boggling.
It's insane.
So I have zero concern for that. Now, Matt Patricia, on the other hand, I have all the concerns in the world. Where I do think I do agree with you, Mike. I think he's gonna keep it simple, stupid, kind of mentality where it's gonna be rush for, maybe blitz a linebacker, but that's about the extent. Maybe sneak one of the corners, potentially use Caleb. I really think that he might use Caleb Downs as more of a hybrid guy, more so than the standalone standard safety guy. I think he's going to be more of a hybrid, because with Caleb Downs, he's elite talent, all the way across the board, and the guy can pretty much do just about anything you ask him to do. And he's one of the best tacklers in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Caleb Downs will be turned into Ohio State fans. Forgive me for this because it's the only person I can think of right now off the top of my head.
I know what you're about to say.
Oh God! You know what? He just escaped my brain. It just escaped my brain now.
Why are you gonna say Jabril?
Yeah, Jabril Peppers.
Oh man,
like the Jabril Peppers. Yes, exactly.
That's who I figured you were going.
I feel like that's going to be the kind of role, or maybe I'm completely off, but I do think he's going to end up being in more of a hybrid role in this particular defense.
Yeah, he's been working actually quite a bit at nickel in fall camp. He can play when they have just the two linebacker sets with Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. He might play a step or two behind them as like certainly in the run game. But yeah, you're right. His ability to tackle an open field really makes him valuable in a way that you can move him around. There are some guys who kind of use speed and can just be around the ball, but they don't always finish.
Yeah.
And if people want to get an idea of what Caleb Downs is about, watch the goal line play that Texas had in the playoff last year where they were going to run a sweep, and it looked like they were going to score. And Downs didn't. I mean, he just pushed the guy toward the sideline, and he got a shoe on him, and then he allowed his teammates to come get him.
Yeah.
But if there's another safety there who doesn't have the instincts and doesn't understand the angle that he needed to take to short circuit the running back, he probably gets around the corner and scores. So he's just really a dynamic talent. And you saw it that he led Alabama in tackles as a freshman with over 100. And that doesn't happen for a Nick Saban team. It's usually a veteran guy. So when I was told that he was coming in, I can't do cartwheels, but I was going to try to do one that day. I said, wait a second. OSU is getting Caleb Downs? You've got to be kidding me. And my wife said, you don't want to be in traction for 2 weeks, so don't do one. But
just remembering that news, I was like, I think the whole college football world was shocked. Just an elite poll.
I remember our friend Blake was definitely a little happy about him leaving Alabama.
He's a big Bama fan, and he was like, what in the world just happened? How we're Alabama, you know? But either way, I think the coaching staff is in good hands. I mean, obviously Ryan Day has things continuing to roll. It's his program. He sets the standard. But I guess maybe for Patricia, maybe it's a little bit of growing pains getting back in early. Kind of like I hate referencing back Michigan, but that's just, you know, Wink Martindale kind of did the same thing, coming back in after a while. It took him a minute. He was trying to, I think, do too much. And then he finally realized, okay, these guys do certain things well, I'm going to do it. And I think Patricia might be in that same mold of kind of getting figured out first, and then watch out because it could turn up with him just being the DC and getting back to what he does best. So
and they're not going to finish number one in defense again this year. But if they only slip to 10 or 15, I still think they'll be a top 20 unit. There's going to be some regression just because of the guys they lost and the coordinator they lost. But unless they slip like to 40 or 45, I'm not worried. I think even if they're a top 10, top 15, the offense numbers wise will probably be better because you have a truer arm talent quarterback than you had with Will Howard. So any regression you might have with the defense, I think is going to be offset by the improvement, big play potential, and yardage that the offense is going to put up.
Yeah, well, let's talk on it because you know, obviously we just hit the coaching. We'll do a little bit of portal real quick, and that'll lead us right into offense. Portal is still 24th class in the country with 11 guys coming in and 15 out. Targets, you know, big one, Max Clare. That's huge for this offense. You know, I obviously mentioned returning productions at 48. You lose a lot of guys, but bringing it, you still have tons of talent. And then you bring in a player like Max Clare, offensive lineman coming up. Running back, CJ Donaldson. Guys, what do you think about this class? I think they fit pretty much all the needs that they had to plug.
It was a typical Ryan Day foray into the portal. The year before, when he got Caleb Downs, when he got Quinshon Judkins, they only got 6 guys. They're not a team that goes in and just goes super portal heavy. They go where they need to fill needs. They got Ethan Anianwa from Rice because they knew they were going to be losing Donovan Jackson and some guys up front. So he's a guy you can plug in at one of the tackle spots. They knew that they were going to be losing both Henderson and Judkins. So getting a running back was a smart move. And CJ Donaldson scored 30 touchdowns in 3 years in his time in West Virginia. So he obviously has a nose for the end zone. And teaming him with James Peoples, who a lot of people say remind them of J.K. Dobbins, I think that is a real good pickup. And then Claire, you mentioned a guy who can get down the seam and who creates matchup problems. And then on defense, Bo Atkinson, that's another place. Defensive line, they aren't really deep. And so to be able to get another edge pass rusher and a guy who can kick inside on occasion if he needs to, if they want to go for a little more of a speed look up front, getting Bo Atkinson, I think, was a pretty big deal because he does help on the edge. They're actually okay at the edge. It's the interior of the defensive line where they don't have a lot of depth. But having Atkinson there allows them to do some other things with a few other guys. So, again, it's not heavy into the portal, but they are very particular about who they want. And all of these guys are going to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Atkinson was probably I have him written down as their biggest get.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think that he is a very versatile D lineman for them. I know he's labeled as an edge rusher, but like Mike said, he is easily somebody that can be moved inside and maybe put a speedy linebacker on his outside, and then you got a third down rushing. And it's gonna cause problems for defenses, I think, because most guards would not be able to handle Atkinson on the interior like that sometimes. And I like that, but I mean, the transfer portal really looks like a team that already had whatever they wanted within the recruiting side of things, where they basically got everything they wanted out of the recruiting side of things. They needed to get a couple veteran pieces, and that's exactly what the transfer portal reflected with Ohio State's transfer portal. I mean, their recruiting class, I mean, it's top 4 in the country. I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
What are we talking about right now?
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah, I love the pieces that they got. I liked really reading about some of the recruits that they got as well. It's going to be interesting to see which recruits actually step up this season, because there will be a couple that separate themselves from the rest.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ohio State recruits so well anyway, so it's plug and play, and how quickly can these young guys get up to speed?
Yep.
And then with the portal, Ohio State doesn't need to do massive portal classes like we see in other teams that we preview. They have the luxury of just filling gaps where they need it,
right?
And where they don't think they have such a hole. So portal side, again, does what it needs to do. Offensively, let's get into this, because of course, the offensive lineman we didn't really mention. Philip Daniels, you mentioned on Onawa. So there's guys that can play there that are going to step in. But the biggest question out of the gate is, who's quarterback one? Julian Sayin seems to be the guy, but there's words that Kienholz is getting up in there. What do you see, Mike?
They are both in the running from the spring. For the balance of the spring, a lot of people said that Kienholz actually was more consistent and understood things more, which would make sense. He's been in the program longer, but Sayin really balled out in the spring game, and I think that's what kind of gave people optimism. A lot of people, I think, believe that Day is just kind of touting lip service to keep the competition going, but unlike years when you had Justin Fields and you had CJ Stroud, where he was really saying it just to kind of keep them hungry, this one I think is a real competition, and I think they can win with both. I mean, Kienholz is a little bit bigger, so if they want to do some more RPO or running, they can use him. Sayin has a great arm, quick release, is a guy who was a 5-star guy, and I think has the higher ceiling. It's just a question of you can have all the talent in the world. I mean, Will Howard, from a talent standpoint, I don't think a lot of people were going to say he was a naturally talented quarterback, but he had leadership out the wazoo. And that's where I think it's going to come down. If Sayan doesn't have the leadership and Keenholz does, and it's this close, I think maybe Keenholz starts, but I think that they're both going to play certainly early. And then by the time they get to Big Ten season, they will have wanted one guy to sort of separate himself, and they'll name a starter. But I think that both of them have distinct things they can do. I just think it's going to come down to who leads the team better, who takes command in the huddle, who do the players kind of gravitate to, and I think that's going to be the guy. And if I had to put money on it, I would say it probably is Sayan, but I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it's a foregone, it's 90-95%. I'm saying maybe 65-70%. I will lean towards Sayan, but would I be surprised if Keenholz got it? Not at all.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've read mostly too, is that Keenholz is definitely stepping up there. But I feel like, I don't know, I guess are they kind of talking that just St. Clair's just not there yet? Like he's not picking it up fast enough? Because I haven't really I have not heard or seen anybody really talking about him too much.
He was never going to challenge, even though their numbers are low. I mean, they only have 2 guys who are established. They brought in a kid from Houston Christian who has played, who ostensibly would be a guy in case somebody gets hurt. I saw St. Clair play last year in person, and yeah, he's got the size, he's got the arm, but he played in a smaller school division. So the speed of the game, going through progressions and things like that are going to take him some time.
Minute. Yeah,
he's got the talent.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he's got the talent, but he didn't play against naturally great athletes the way a lot of like the Division I and the big school guys will routinely face other guys who are going to big colleges. He was kind of the big fish at his team and really in his league. So I think that having a year to sit and watch, obviously he'll get in some games when they're just kind of housing people, probably Grambling, maybe a couple of other games, and they'll let him see what he can do. But unless there is just like a major injury to somebody, I don't think he's going to play a lot of meaningful minutes this year.
Yeah.
And then he can really be in the fray next season when in theory, all 3 of them can be back. And then it'll be best man win.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting situation. And, we'll see what happens coming the end of fall. But I mean, having 2, stand-up quarterbacks is not a problem to have. So, we'll take it. Sorry, something popped up on my screen. I get rid of it. Offensive line, that's the other side of it. There's question marks, from the outside looking in of they're replacing some guys, but they still bring back veterans, 3 veterans, and then the portal guys they're strong starters. So I think the O-line is going to be fine with the starting 5. Maybe, there's questions at depth on that, but they've recruited well there too. So
they do have some depth questions in terms of experience. One coaching move that I think got overlooked is Tyler Bowen, who they got from Virginia Tech. He was kind of one of Virginia Tech's lead recruiters, and Virginia Tech has turned out some NFL guys in the last few years. And the problem that Ohio State had in the past was they were missing out on the 5-star guys. Now, Justin Fry, to his credit, he was pretty good with developing, but he was not getting the high-end guys. Well, they've already gotten a kid, Sam Greer, who is a top 5 lineman nationally. They brought in a kid in this class who's going to be a freshman this year, Carter Lowe, who was a top 10 or 15 guy. So the tide is beginning to turn as far as bringing in talent. But Bowen also is very vocal, very excitable. He was Virginia Tech's co-offensive coordinator too. Yeah. So he can certainly give Hartline some assistance as a veteran guy who understands the game from the inside out. I think that of the guys they have coming back, the one I like the most is Luke Montgomery, who's a guard. He played some last year. He was kind of like the 6th guy. But getting Carson Hinsman back at center, Austin Siravel played guard and tackle. He sounds like he's playing exclusively tackle now. Tigre Tishabola has played. So really, it's Onyanwa and maybe one or two other guys in the depth mix. So while they haven't all played together, they've gotten enough playing time that I'm not as worried about this group as I would be in a lot of years if there was this kind of turnover.
Right. Yeah, Trev, anything on the O-line?
I personally have I am also worried about their depth at linemen, because I'll tell you what, I mean, as good as Ohio State is getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly, the Big Ten schedule, it's brutal on offensive linemen. It's rough to go through a Big Ten season on the offensive line with depth question marks. Doesn't mean that some of these younger guys can't step in and really at least stem the tide, as they say.
Yeah.
But I am worried about the depth at offensive line. If we'll say two guards go out, two guards get injured with 3-4 week injury, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal.
Yeah, definitely.
Very true. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I think they're in good shape with the starting five, but then after that, we'll see. We mentioned losing the talent. Halfbacks lost starters. Wide receiver, they lose Emeka Ibuka, but there's still talent coming in, and there's loaded. I mean, wide receiver is loaded with talent. So it's, I guess, the veteran presence of those guys. How do the young guys step up? But there's weapons for if it's Sayin or whoever starts. There's weapons still around.
Yeah, there's a guy, I think he's number 4. I think his last name is Smith. I think he can play just a little bit.
I think he pretty much take on two cornerbacks at the same time and still get the ball.
I think
I've heard of him.
I know
him.
Yeah. The funny thing is that Carnell Tate probably for 95% of teams in America would be the wide receiver 1.
Easily.
But he just happens to be the wide receiver 2. And so, yeah, Ibuka was definitely a savvy guy, did pretty much anything they wanted. And it's not surprising that reports out of Tampa Bay camp, Baker Mayfield loves him because he's doing just all of the little things. He's smart. He'll block. He can play the slot. He can play outside. So replacing him will be easier said than done. But over here, you've got Brandon Innes, who was a 5-star. You've got Mylan Graham, who kind of redshirted last year, who also was a 5-star. You've got Quincy Porter, who is an incoming guy, who was a 5-star. And so, I mean, that's one area, unlike offensive line, where if somebody goes down, they're in trouble. They're not really in. I mean, if Smith went down,
it's just a next man up thing for the wide receivers.
Next man up, and they would go down a little bit. But they've just got so many guys at receiver that it is mind-boggling. You said earlier on that there's so many guys in the NFL that Hartline has brought in, but he's got guys coming in this year, and he's got like the number 1 or 2 receiver committed already for next season. So it's just it's a pipeline, and different schools can lay claim to whatever position they want to be, but there's no debate that Ohio State is wide receiver U.
None whatsoever, in my opinion.
And if Sayin gets the job, it's going to be a lot of fun to see him just kind of spraying it all over the place to these guys. Just because there's so many of them, they're all going to get their touches. They can all do damage.
Yep. Yeah, and we mentioned Claire too. So I mean, there's weapons there. Yeah. I think the running back position is going to be fine. Mentioned Donaldson coming in. On our West Virginia preview, the West Virginia fans were very upset that he left. They're like, man, I wanted to see him with Rich Rod in this offense. But
I mean, and Jaheim White is obviously very good, but when it's not a 1-2 punch, is he going to be as effective? But I see people, and I love the Donaldson get. He reminds me a little bit of Mayan Williams, who was the bigger component near the goal line when Travion Henderson was getting hurt. He was a guy who could kind of take it. But I really think that the folks who are I'm not sure Donaldson's the starter. I think James Peoples is a guy that is maybe getting slept on a little bit. And I really think that he is going to emerge as – I mean, the Big Ten is just replete with running backs. I mean, the guys at Penn State obviously are really good. Darius Taylor at Minnesota is outstanding. Nebraska has a few. Oregon's got them. So there are running backs aplenty, but I think by the end of the year, Peoples could be like a top 5 or 6 back in the league, and Donaldson is going to get his touches too, and he could end up being a touchdown stealer because he's so big.
That's what I was going to say.
Inside the 5 or 10, they're just going to go to like a heavy package with probably an extra tight end and just boom right up the middle.
Absolutely. I was going to say that it's like 6'2", 240. Yeah, I think, or 238 if he hasn't dropped any weight since all the reports came out. I mean, yeah, that it's tailor made for a big package inside the
bowling ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, so offense, the whole thing's predicated on depth of the O-line, and then just what quarterback steps up. How do they fare against the early onslaught? We get Texas, first up on coming up, and then just how do they deal with finally getting in that starting position?
And what I would say, secondly, is that while they got all these weapons pieces, all this other things going on, I think another thing that I'm curious to see is just how Hartline manages it all.
Yeah,
as the OC, and how he manages the play calling. Is he going to be more balanced? Is he going to attempt to be more balanced, or is he going to use the pass to set up the run, so on and so forth?
Yeah, really, is there any what growing pains are there in the offense? We'll see what happens with it. On the defensive side, we mentioned last year is the number 1 in the country. We know there's going to be some sort of a fall off, but I don't know how much. I mean, they're still loaded with talent. We mentioned earlier the edge rushers are still good. The D lineman interior is the biggest question. Mike, what are you seeing defensively on the front 7, even the linebacker core? They're speedy, they're athletic. What are you seeing up on the front?
In our preview magazine, we had the only place we did not have Ohio State as a team ranked in the top 11 was along the defensive line, mostly because of depth. And I mean, they lose 4 guys to the NFL. Mm-hmm. And that is hard to that's the one area that they've had some misses in recruiting that I think if they get some injuries this year, that's something that could come home to roost. But folks need to know the name Kenyatta Jackson Jr. I think he's the next guy to step up and really be a guy who causes some problems for opposing offenses. I think coming off the edge, he and Atkinson are really going to be able to do some damage. And what that is going to do is that's going to allow them, because there isn't depth in the interior, Caden Curry, who was kind of supposed to be an edge guy, he's another one of these guys who, like Atkinson, can play inside. And I think you'll see Caden Curry slide inside a bit. CJ Hicks has moved from linebacker to pretty much pure pass rusher, which will take advantage of his speed. Edric Houston, who they have high hopes for inside, he first day of practice kind of rolled his ankle, but it was nothing serious. He's already back. The other inside spot is probably going to be a little more of a committee. They've got Jason Moore. They've got Caden McDonald. They've got Will Smith Jr. These are guys that are not going to be household names, but I think it's going to be a lot of the one thing that they didn't do last year with Knowles, they didn't do a lot of rolling guys in. And I think you're going to see a lot of different combinations playing. They got another transfer from Idaho, Logan George, who was like an FCS All-American. He's probably going to be in the mix somewhere. So they are deep on the outside, but they cannot afford to have injuries on the interior, because then they're going to have to move some guys around. Yeah. As far as linebacker, Sonny Styles is an All-America candidate. But by the end of the year, Arvell Reese might be the guy that people are talking about. He is physical. He comes from that Cleveland-Glenville pipeline that has stocked so many players to Ohio State. He's got a nasty attitude, and he's just a thumper. I mean, he's a big guy. They've also got really 2 guys backing them up. Peyton Pierce, who would probably be a starter at a lot of places, and a freshman, Riley Pettijohn, who was, I think, the number 1 or 2 linebacker available in recruiting. They've got him as well. So they've got 4 guys. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot of 4-3. They're probably going to stick with the 4-2-5. But on the instances they do go to 4-3, they've got enough guys that they can do it and not have to really lose a beat.
Yeah, Trev.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too concerned.
Yeah.
Defensive line, I am a little concerned, like Mike was mentioning, but linebackers,
these guys.
I mean, yeah, they just always usually have them. So yeah, I'm not really too concerned about it. Cornerback, I'm kind of curious on what Mike has to say about the corners because I'm really wanting to hear what he has to say about that 5-star corner, Devin Sanchez, and how he's playing out in the fall camp here coming up.
Devin Sanchez is Jeremiah Smith was my man crush last year. Devin Sanchez is my man crush this year. While I don't think he's going to have the impact that Smith had on the offense, I think from a talent standpoint, by maybe the Big Ten season, middle of the season at the latest, he's going to be a freshman that people notice. The corners, I also am probably the president or vice president of the Jermaine Matthews fan club.
Yeah.
I really like him. He was the one guy who has really kind of shown that lockdown ability that guys like Denzel Ward and Marshawn Lattimore and Bradley Roby, guys who they've had in the past that have been able to get it done, that they have not quite – they've been missing that a little bit. I mean, Davison Igbinosun is back, physical, but he's got to watch the hands. I think it was something like 15 or 16 pass interference penalties. That's not going to fly again this year. But Sanchez, I think, is probably going to start the year as a kind of a timeshare at nickel with Lorenzo Styles Jr. Yeah. But I think he is a guy, especially depending on what they want to do with Downs. I think that Sanchez can take over at nickel and be that kind of cover guy, because those slot guys are always it's dicey to put a linebacker on them, and it's dicey to put a safety on them. If you've got a third cover corner who can be on that nickel guy, you've really got stuff locked down. And then you got Downs. You do lose Lathan Ransom, who was a pretty vital part of the defense. Yeah. But I think they like what they have in Jalen McClain. They've got Malik Hartford, who has played some in a reserve role. And they've got a high-powered recruit, Fahim Delane, who is probably going to be on the field at some point during the year. So the talent is there. They do have to retool a little bit, but it's not like these are guys who are coming in and just flying blind who have no experience.
Right. Yeah, maybe just some growing pains. We'll see how that goes. But, I mean, again, there's so much talent on that back end. It's just plug and play, really, and just see who fits. And then if it's not working, you got guys you can rotate through.
Exactly.
So really, again, it pins on for the offense and the defense, just the couple areas, the quarterback situation. How do these guys fare early? And then defense, that interior line, how do they hold up against strong run games throughout the Big Ten? And I mean, let's look at the schedule, guys, and kind of see what Texas is dealing with. Pull it up on my end here too. And because on my side it's so small on that screen. All right. So obviously we all know Texas week 1. I mean, this is a massive matchup. What the coaches poll has it a 1 versus 2.
Yep. And I think that's the first one ever to open the season, if I read that properly.
Oh man. I mean, I'd have to check. It would not shock me, but I mean, this is a massive battle in Columbus. It did get the big noon slot. I know that's a big stink on the fan base. There's a lot of talk about that, but regardless, Columbus
everybody
is rocking.
I mean, I'm kind of angry about it too, to be honest with you. I would have loved to sit back for a night game in the shoe and watch that. That'd be
I'm
awesome.
less angry than a lot of people, because part of me says I don't mind that my day starts with a huge game.
Yeah,
now, fair. That said, it is getting ridiculous how many of these Ohio State games are being played at noon, because as someone who is not really much of a drinker or doesn't need to get lathered up during the day,
right.
the tailgating stuff and all that, it's nice, but it is not what I live for. And so going to the game just at night, it's a different atmosphere, and it's cool if they happen every so often, but they're not happening at all. And so I think that Ross Bjork, I think that if Ohio State is paying the freight for Fox, which they certainly seem to be, I would think that Ross Bjork could go to them and say, look, we'll give you a concession. We will be a big noon game on a game that you weren't expecting. We'll give you first dibs. If you give us a night game against, whether it be a Penn State or an Oregon or one of the marquee games to be played at night, because Fox will televise Big 12 games in the evening. So it's not that Fox doesn't do evening games. They just, the Big Ten contract, they have first pick, and first pick means first slot of the day at noon. And then NBC gets like the C game at night, and CBS will probably get the second best game. So they just, and this is a deal that was made by Kevin Warren. So that shouldn't surprise anybody.
No.
Right.
Kevin Warren.
When this is over, I think it's another 2 years, unfortunately. If they can't make an individual, occasional piece-by-piece thing to get a night game, they've just got to go to Fox and say, look, if you want to be our number one partner, there's got to be some concessions. We've got to have some games at night in September and October.
You got to have it. I mean, and then obviously the Michigan game's always at noon. That's tradition. We know that.
That doesn't bother me.
But it's like, when you have that, and then Penn State is rumored to be another noon game now, and that's another massive battle. So I get why there's frustration.
Right.
But regardless, Texas is coming to town. Columbus is going to be fired up. It doesn't matter. This place is going to be rocking.
Well, and don't forget, it's going to be Lee Corso's last game day too.
Yeah, I mean, just everything is going into this is just going to be an insane battle.
First week, I cannot wait. This is amazing.
Young quarterbacks going at it. Defense.
The only downside is now that we have the expanded playoff. Yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to kill anybody. Whereas in the 14 playoff, whoever loses would be walking a tightrope the rest of the year, and every game would have drama. Now it's like, okay, they know someone's going to lose, but barring both teams falling apart, they're both going to be there at the end.
Right. Agreed. Yeah, I absolutely
agree. You're really just kind of praying for no major injuries out of this game.
Definitely.
And it, it does set a tone. And there'll be, depending on how things go, if it's a tight loss, okay, I think both teams can walk away and feel pretty good about it. But if somebody gets blown out, then there's going to be, okay, what just happened? But then after that, you go and you got Grambling State and Ohio. Ohio's a good team in the in the MAC and the Group of 6 squad there. I think I like what they have, but it's still not going to be enough to deal with the talent of Ohio State. And then after that, you get a nice little segment with Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, and then the back end, of course, Penn State and Michigan to round it out. Guys, what are your thoughts on the schedule, how it's shaken out, kind of the bye weeks, just how are you feeling?
I think that there are a couple of tricky games on here. Obviously, everyone talks about Penn State. I love that. That's probably the Big Ten game of the year. Full disclosure, I have Penn State being the Big Ten champion, but I have them losing the regular season game, but turning the tables and winning in the Big Ten championship game, just because until James Franklin shows he can win in Ohio Stadium, I'm not going to predict it to happen.
Sure.
And this is his best team that he has had. But and there have been a couple of close ones. I mean, that 2017 game was great where JT Barrett throws the pass late to win the game. And most of the time these games are pretty close. So Penn State is right there. But I think that the tricky games could be Washington, although coming off of an off week, it's less concerning to me than going to Illinois is. Yeah. Washington's defense to me doesn't look like one that's going to hold up real well against a really good passing attack. End of the year last year, Washington was kind of leaky. I think they gave up 30 points in 4 of their last 6 games. They gave up 40 to Iowa.
Yeah.
And it usually takes Iowa 4 games to score 40 points. So I think Washington, while they're a good offensive team, I love Jonah Coleman. I love Damon Williams. He's a guy who I think can really elevate himself into kind of a spotlight role. I don't think Washington's defense is good enough to stick with Ohio State. Illinois, on the other hand, coming off of a game, while I think OSU can handle Minnesota at home, Minnesota has a reputation for playing physical. Darius Taylor is going to run the ball a lot. And that's one where if they've got some bumps and bruises and they go to Illinois. Luke Altmaier is a veteran quarterback. They have a lot of their their offensive line back, and Brett Bielema is a defensive coach, and Illinois got better on defense last season. That's the one that I don't think Ohio State fans are talking enough about as a potential landmine. Wisconsin doesn't worry me. I actually think Wisconsin is going to be one of the poorer teams in the conference this year. I know that Camp Randall has like this mystique, but I just don't think that there's a lot of players there. Penn State obviously is Penn State. Then it eases up until Michigan. I mean, Purdue, UCLA, and Rutgers, they should win those really without much of a sweat. And then it comes down to the Michigan game. And Is that going to be for a berth in the Big Ten championship game? Is that going to be kind of maybe an undefeated season on the line? So from November 1st to the last regular season game, there's 2 games to circle, but they're both going to be fascinating. But early on, I mean, Texas, Washington potentially, and Illinois, I think there's a couple of tricky spots here that if OSU isn't careful, they might have a loss that they weren't expecting.
Yeah, honestly, overall, this schedule, I think, because of where the bye weeks land for Ohio State, it helps them out a ton.
Yeah.
So obviously, Texas, you got to, but really, Grambling and Ohio, the way I kind of look at it, and I know Brendan looks at it this way too. This is basically 2 weeks prior to the bye week of prepping for Washington, where they can kind of start trickling in things that they want to throw at Washington, so they can kind of be prepared for the travel out to Washington. If Washington was in any other position on this schedule, I would say this is way more dangerous of a game, because we already covered Washington, and I am super high on Washington. I think that Jedd Fisch recruited well. He did enough in the portal to really improve his offense and defense. And I think a full offseason with Jedd Fisch at the helm is going to be make Washington a much more dangerous team than what a lot of people are talking about. Yes. I do agree with you with Illinois. That could be a landmine. I also agree with you about Wisconsin. I think they're going to be a train wreck. But but Penn State, yeah, they're going to be a tough one. And honestly, Mike, I kind of agree with your total assessment of that. But I think the Michigan game potentially could be a lot bigger in the grand scheme of the way the Big Ten shakes out than I think a lot of people are talking about, because there's a lot of question marks for Michigan as well going into this season.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the Michigan game plays out and what they do offensively. But I mean, I think the defense is going to be, right in that same, tier group. Even though they did lose, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, there's still guys that are going to step up. And then also, I know people don't necessarily talk about it, but the mental side of, okay, it's been 4 in a row. What happened last year at the end of the game? Like, does that carry over? I know you won the national title, and that cleans a lot of the plate, but I think it still might hang around a little bit. And it's in Ann Arbor, so it's going to be a crazy game. The rest of
I actually think that might help Ohio State just a little bit, because the fan base here will be so jacked up that if the game was here and it was tight, they would almost feel like the negative energy. Whereas if they feel like they're playing against something, which they will be in Ann Arbor, I think that it may actually be, and it's rare to say this, that you want to go on the road against your rival. I actually think because of last year's outcome, it is actually a bit of a help that they're playing in Ann Arbor, because while there will be Ohio State fans there, I don't think that there's going to be just the cacophony of boos that could rain down if the offense is starting to stutter or if the defense allows some big plays.
I can definitely get that line of thinking there. That makes sense to me. You don't have to, like you said, deal with the boo birds, or if things start going sideways, which things last year, the way that people were talking, like they want to get some, not everybody, but there's people talking that, hey, we want to get rid of Ryan Day, and you're like, oh, hold on now. So now we'll see what happens this season. But I agree, that middle segment with Illinois, Minnesota's going to be a sneaky team, I think, especially if Lindsey's the quarterback that everybody says he is, and that running game. If the interior of Ohio State's line is struggling, or they can't get the rotation in, well, there might be problems with Darius Taylor. I'm curious what you guys think. I guess maybe floor, ceiling, or where you're landing on this overall season for Ohio State.
My floor, the absolute floor, is 9-3, but I think it's more likely to be 10-2. And their ceiling, they could go 12-0. I mean, if they beat Texas, then really, to me, the only other team that has similar talent to them is Penn State, and that game is at home. But I will put their ceiling realistically at 11-1 and their floor at 9-3.
Trevor?
I tend to agree with that assessment. I want to say I would say I have a hard time finding three losses, but I could find them in theory. But I would say I'm going to say 10-2, 11-1. Like it's somewhere in that range for me. I don't see three. There's always a possibility in college football for a loss to sneak in there somewhere.
That's the one thing Ryan Day hasn't done that Urban Meyer did. As good as Urban was and as focused as he was on Michigan, that Purdue, like an odd Purdue loss or an odd Iowa loss would crop up. And Ryan Day has not lost to teams that he should not lose to. And so really on the schedule, Texas and Penn State, from a talent standpoint, are the only teams that right now would stand a chance stacking up player for player against OSU. Michigan is recruiting better, but I think that because they did lose a lot of guys on defense, depth-wise, I don't think they're quite there yet, but give Sharon Moore another year, and I think Michigan can be in that equation too.
Yeah, and the over-under that Vegas has set, even with the attrition that Ohio State has seen, is at 10.5. So, I mean, there's still belief in Vegas. For me, I've teetered on, like, if things just go completely wrong, the quarterback situation isn't as, like, when it comes to gameplay, it's not as great as what we think. You drop a game to Texas, and maybe Washington does step up. Maybe there's a loss to Washington, Illinois, and then Michigan or Penn State. So I could see if things go horribly wrong, 4 losses. If things just fall off the rail, I don't think that's going to happen, but I could see something happening.
Really?
Like, yeah. If things go horrible, I do. I just trying to be is like,
it could if there are some injuries on the offensive line, defensive line, and the quarterbacks don't pan out. That wouldn't be impossible.
But I don't think it's going to happen. I think that the ceiling is 11-1. I think this is going to be a team that falls at the 10-2. I think Texas probably gets the win early, but it's going to be very close. And then maybe one other somewhere, maybe the Illinois game, Penn State, or the Michigan game. One of those could drop. But I see a 10-2 season for Ohio State, and they're going to be playoff bound and going right back at it. So. A lot to like about the team. It's just I want to see how things play out. Again with the quarterback situation and of course the interior of that D line, how it holds up. But there's enough talent to shore up a lot of problems if anything does arise. So guys, we want to hear what you think. Hit us up in the comments on YouTube, on Twitter, everything. I know there's so much hype around this team and saying and just how talented he is. Let us know what you think about their schedule and where they're going to land in the Big Ten. Are they going to win another championship? A lot of people are feeling it. Guys, Mike, thank you so much for being on. Any last words, on the season or, of course, tell us where we can find you online in socials.
Yeah, as far as the season, I'm just waiting for it to get here. I mean, this Saturday, we're 2 weeks away from Iowa State and Kansas State kicking off in Ireland. Traditional Irish powers, Iowa State and Kansas State. But you know what? It's college football. There's 8 or 9 games that day. We can finally get back into our routine and just sort of be happy that the games are going to start counting. As far as where I am, you can find me on Twitter at CFFM Wachsman, spelled exactly like my name shows in the box. And it's College Football Focus. And again, for folks who might want to check out our preview publication, it is cfbfocus.gumroad.com, and it'll take you right to a link. You can pay for it. It's a digital product. The second you pay for it, it'll open up and you will have in excess of 300 pages of information for you and pretty much rundowns of every power conference team and overall looks at the G5 and predictions and recruiting and all that sort of stuff.
Hey, fantastic. Trevor, what about from you? Anything else before we shut her down?
I'm just here. I'm just the pretty face, man.
You're beautiful, my friend. Everybody, we appreciate your time, truly. Check out Mike. He puts out great work all the time. Twitter, that's where we interact the most. And it's been wonderful, getting to connect with you, Mike. So thank you again for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, we hope you guys have a great one and enjoy the episode. We'll see you around.
Take care.